improvements have been made to the lasso tool in PowerShape 2015, so we can now switch from whole box select mode to partial box select mode. I'm going to demonstrate this using this part here. It's got a few faults in it, so I'm going to run the solid doctor. So if we take a look at this first one, you can see that this is just highlighting the edge of my part, so that's okay. Take a look at the second problem here. I'm just going to zoom into that. And you can see that we've got some overlapping faces and a hole in my part. So I'm actually going to fix this manually and not using the solid doctor. So with my part selected, I'm going to use my lasso tool and I'm going to lasso these faces here, and by default we're going to be in whole box select mode. So only these two faces here that were completely surrounded by my lasso were selected. So I'm going to extract these and then I can delete them. I'm just going to change my shading so I can see my edges. Again, with my solid selected, what we can now do is switch to partial box select mode, go back to my lasso tool, and we can select all of these faces here where the problem hole is in my solid. So when I do that, you can see that all of my faces that were only partially selected have been highlighted. So I can now extract these, and I'm going to hide my solid. Okay, so my faces have been extracted and they're now surfaces, and I can now trim these two surfaces off here. And I'm going to do this first of all by creating a Bezier curve. I'm going to create a curve along here. I'm just going to hold down my control key so I get a straight span. I'm going to let off the control key so I get a nice curved span there, and then back on the control key to get another straight span. So once I've got my curve created and it's selected, I can go to my general edits. I'm going to say limit selection. I want to trim these two surfaces here. I'm going to go to view project mode. I'm just going to select those two surfaces. See, we've got the wrong solution, so I'm just going to say next solution and say OK. So now I can delete my curve, and I'm going to create a composite curve around that edge. So I've got turn right on selected, so I can just fast forward to the end and say save and eject. So now all I need to do is go to my smart surfacer, create a surface. So my fill-in surface has been created. I'm going to say OK. Now all I need to do, I can delete my composite curve. I want to show the rest of my solid. With my solid selected, I want to stitch those surfaces back in. I can select all of those surfaces and say OK. Now, just to make sure that my part is fixed, I'm going to run the solid doctor again. So you can see we've got one large hole, and that's just when around the edge of my part, so I can actually tell PowerShape to ignore my large intentional hole, like so, and then we can finish.